Hello everyone. Today I'll share some Draw.io tips that can help take your diagrams to the next level. So Draw.io is a great diagramming tool and it's packed with features, but many features are not very discoverable. So let's dive in and check out the Pages feature. Pages are the highest level of separation within a single diagram, and they act much like worksheets in a spreadsheet application. So in the bottom left corner, you can see all the pages in the current diagram, and you can perform operations like creating, duplicating, and deleting. Pages can be useful when you want to have multiple distinct diagrams in a file, but they don't all need to be visible at the same time. For example, one common use of pages is for an architectural roadmap. Each page could be a separate step that you could then duplicate and modify for future steps. For example, in this fictional banking application, there are two states. I could duplicate their transition state, modify it as necessary to meet the architectural needs, and then that would become the final state. So you can see, looking between the three pages here, that the shapes have remained from the first two pages, despite the changes made on the final page. So do note that pages are disconnected from each other. Even if you duplicate and modify a page, it will share nothing with the original page. In some cases, that's what you want. In some cases, that might not be what you want. So if pages are too distinct for your use case, then maybe the layer feature is what you need. Layers are a little more difficult to use simply because they are not visible in the default UI. To access the layer window, go to the View menu and select Layers. Initially, you will have a single layer name background, but you can add, remove, and rename layers as you need. Once you select a layer, any elements added to the diagram after that point will belong to that new layer. This includes shapes, lines, and text. This is useful if you want to show or hide those elements for certain situations, such as making a complex diagram more simple for certain audiences or use cases. In this example, the banking system has been modified to include an audit functionality, but those lines add congestion to the drawing and are not always necessary. We'll move them to a separate layer so they can be hidden when not needed. You can also lock a layer to prevent changes to any items in that layer. This is also useful with complex diagrams with many shapes in close proximity. When displaying a diagram on a Confluence page, you can configure layer visibility through the menu at the top. This button toggles the layers, so we can enable or disable the audit layer. You can then save this option so other people viewing this page will have the same view that you do. Now let's talk about lines. These are a necessary part of most diagrams, but may also be the most frustrating. Our first tip is to use waypoints to control the path of lines, especially when multiple lines are converging or diverging from a point. You can find the waypoint by searching in the toolbox. It's essentially just a black dot that acts as a connection point for lines, but it can make your life easier. The usual way of splitting or converging multiple lines is to have them overlap each other, but this becomes difficult when moving or resizing the shapes involved. For example, if I move the top shape, we can see that the lines start to separate and move awkwardly. To fix this, let's put a waypoint here. Now, we can move the shape without messing up the lines beneath it. If desired, you can also make the waypoint invisible by selecting it and unchecking the line property. Sometimes when moving a line, the snapping mechanism gets in the way. You can see it really wants to dock either to a connection point or on the outer edge of the shape, not inside the shape, which might be desirable in certain cases. To override this behavior, you can use Option on Mac or Alt on Windows. Now you can see I can move the end of the line inside the object anywhere I want and drop it there. But if you do still want to use connection points and the default ones just aren't in the right place, then you're in luck because they can be customized. Right-click the shape and select Edit Connection Points. Then, from here, you can add new points, move existing points, or delete points. You can even place points outside the bounds of the object if you would like. Once you've customized a shape, either with connection points or any other properties, you may want to reuse it. You can easily do so by dragging it to the Scratchpad at the top of the toolbox. This drops it in here, and you can reuse it on future diagrams or the same diagram. You can delete existing items in the Scratchpad by going to the Edit menu, or you can also add images to use in your drawings. Lastly, I'll mention tooltips and links. If you right-click a shape, you can add a link to it, which could be a URL, another page in the diagram, or another page in Confluence. This can be useful if you need to include more information about certain components of your diagram on other pages, either on Confluence or somewhere else on the internet. Additionally, you can add a tooltip to your shapes to give more information. That's through the Edit menu, Edit Tooltip. Now hovering over, you'll see the tooltip, and clicking, you can see the link.